Hello, Wear Many Hats listeners. It's me again, Mark Robinson, your host. Today, we've got another Risings episode. So we're going to be speaking to an up-and-coming facilities manager that has been working in the industry for several years now. He's going to tell us all about his career, how he got there, what he did, what he didn't do. So I'd like to welcome you all to George Carter, facilities manager at Nomura. Hello, George.
Hello, Mark. How you doing?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
So you got off at the wrong stop on the way here?
Yeah, one stop too early, so a little bit of a longer walk, but
Yeah, that was the Evans above saying you need a few more steps.
it did.
They do it to me all the time. Never works though.
The hangover from Christmas beers, to be honest. But
Yeah? Oh, good stuff. So obviously you're the facilities manager at Nomura at the minute. Busy day?
Yeah, very busy day. A couple of long meetings.
Yeah.
All exciting stuff. So
Yeah?
yeah, no, good day.
Living the dream.
Yeah, living the dream.
Good man. Should we start with an easy question?
Yeah, let's do it.
Tell us a little bit about your career today and also, your journey into facilities management.
Yeah, cool. So when I came out of school, I started working within leisure centres.
Oh, really?
So was lifeguard, receptionist.
Yeah.
Eventually into duty manager, a little bit of swimming coaching here and there.
Right.
And after doing it for a couple of years, bounced about between swimming pool, trampoline park, and I thought, you know what, it's good, but it's not quite what I want to do.
It's not the long-term career
No.
you wanted to kind of move away from.
Thought I'll come out of work for a little bit because I was still living at home, so had to support parents and stuff, which was nice, and thought I want to go into an apprenticeship. So didn't really know what in.
Yeah.
But I thought I'll just.
How old were you then, George?
Would have been about 20, 21.
Really? Right, okay. So a few years in work.
Yeah.
And then you thought, right, I want to go down the apprenticeship route.
Yeah, for sure. I was looking at it and I was thinking, like, it was one of those crossroads of either go and do something to really start off a career with some training behind it, or I go to university. Yeah. I'm not built for exams and a lot of studying, and it's not me.
Not everybody is. That's fine.
So started looking at apprenticeships and went off and had a couple of interviews for some. Yeah. And I got the interview at Nomura by complete accident. Right. Because I went in for an interview on, it was like an events apprentice sort of thing. Right. And gone for a whole day of because going through an interview process for an apprenticeship is really grueling, and no one tells you that before you start doing it. Yeah. Because you have to do exams on your maths and English. Really? Depending on where you do it, they'll do like a load of group tasks as well. Right. One of those of you're stuck on a desert island, you can have 5 items with you out of 10, what are you picking? Yeah. And it's those sort of activities where they're trying to see who's going to just talk over everyone. Yeah. Who's going to just say absolutely nothing, or who's going to take that right balance of, I'll listen and then interject. Right. So I've gone for a whole day of that and went, right, that's this event's apprentice job. That's the one I want to go for an interview for. Right. I went, oh, yeah, okay. The interview's next week or whatever. I was like, go on holiday. Oh, no. It's like, any chance we can do another day? No, can't, unfortunately. Is there any others that you like the look of? I said, this facilities assistant one at Nomura looks good. What about that one? So, knowing nothing about facilities at the time? Nothing at all. Yeah. So go down, have the interview, walk in the door, I'm like, this is mental. Can I ask just quick, why did you think that looked good then? What drew you to that? From being duty manager within leisure, essentially you're a facilities manager without realising it. Similar kind of role. You're opening up a building, you're closing a building, you're looking after the building, health and safety of the building, people within the building. It all kind of fit quite nicely to what I'd known previously. So some of the skills you kind of already had. Yeah. Yeah. So luckily get the job, but then I remember it so well. First day, sit down, and I've gone from looking out at my desk at people falling over on a trampoline or swimming very, very badly. Yeah. To, there's Tower Bridge, there's a Shard, there's the bridge, and I'm like, mind was blown. Yeah, mental. Yeah. And the guy who was sitting next to me went, so why have you chosen FM? Yeah. I'm looking at him. I've not got a clue what on earth is FM? What is he talking about? Right. And you can kind of see the deer in the headlights moment that's coming over this poor kid sitting in front of him. He's like, facilities management. And it all suddenly twigged of That's what this is all about. But I didn't really start understanding what the industry was really about until it was quite clear, I think, that there was going to be about a month or so between my apprenticeship starting and me starting work.
Yeah.
So they went, right, we'll go and put you on one of the IWFM courses, Introduction to Facilities Management. And I've gone on this 3-day course, and suddenly the whole industry started making sense.
Right, okay. So you found that very useful then in terms of...
I did very early on.
Yeah.
As someone who'd come into it with no real knowledge of what the sector was, what it was about, how it's set up, was really helpful. And then when you start your apprenticeship, the first unit is Intro to Facilities again. So it really built on it. So I'm sitting there, and rather it being all kind of fresh information to me, I'm like, well, they spoke about how bundled contracts work and stuff like that on the course I was on. So this is all starting to make a little bit more sense again.
Right, okay.
And that's basically what the first 4 years of work was for me. It was go through, look at an assignment, be taught it with the college, come back, talk to my mentors about it at Nomura. They'd give a little bit more of an explanation, do some more research on it, do the assignment, all coming together. And then once I'd...
Sorry, what was the split between work and college? So the split between the academic piece and the practical piece?
So I was probably going to college, probably doing a couple of hours every 2-3 weeks, I think it was at the start. So when I went into the level 4 apprenticeship, it was slightly different. Yeah. Because it was being sort of one-to-one based to more classroom based. Yeah. So it was kind of dependent on when they were putting the lectures on, which I think was more like once a month.
Right, okay. And was the apprenticeship run via IWFM, or was it?
No, so it's run under their branding.
Right.
With their qualifications embedded within it. Okay. But they don't actually deliver it. So they've got loads of colleges around the country that will deliver all the different ones. So I was with Capital City Training, which is out of Westminster Kingsway College.
Yeah. So as a young person coming into FM and taking that avenue, because you're the first person actually that we've had on the show that went via an apprenticeship. Yeah. What would your advice be to young people out there that were looking at it? Did you find that really, really helpful, or was it a hindrance? Which sounds like a silly thing to say, but
no.
How did you find it?
It was so beneficial because I was quite lucky in that my employer fully appreciated the fact that I wasn't just cheap labour, that it was like, right, come in, we'll chuck a load of work on him and he'll get on with it.
So they were invested in it as well.
They were invested in it, and the long-term goal of bringing me through into a position post-apprenticeship.
Yeah.
I think really beneficial from the fact of you go through a lot more of the assignments than maybe you would do if you just went, right, I'm going to start and I'll do the level 3 anyway. Because not only do you have to do all of the institute's assignments, you then have to do a load for the apprenticeship qualification as well. Yeah. So when you do the apprenticeship, you actually end up with your level 3 IWFM. Yeah. And your level 3 apprentice facilities supervisor qualification, whatever the title for it is. Right. So you end up doing like 16 different
qualifications
with assignments for 2 qualifications.
Right.
Which just completely, for me, I found embedded the learning and helped complement it all the way through. Yeah. Rather than touching on it briefly and never look at it again for the rest of the 18-month course.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So when you originally went for the apprenticeship and you were getting offered to go and interview this one, how many facilities apprenticeships were there? Was there a lot or not many? Or
at the time, it was the only one I saw.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's an issue then, isn't it?
Yeah. So that was about 6 years ago, and having looked since, I think what's predominantly happening with the facilities apprenticeships that we've got is that more people are using them to upskill existing workforce. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
No, of course not.
Because it's obviously good for people that have come into the industry later on. They don't want to come.
Or from a different avenue. They've worked. Exactly. They were a cleaner. They were a security officer. Yeah. They were a porter. Anything, Yeah.
So from the angle of I want to come in and just purely straight out of school, I want a facilities apprenticeship. I think unless you're looking in the right places, they're probably a little bit difficult to find.
Right.
But I think it's the Institute of Apprenticeships website. It's quite good for it because it has every different job that's that like entry level apprenticeship is all listed on there for apply, and it's all like general online portal for it.
Yeah. So is it reliant on companies like Nomura, for example, reaching out to the apprenticeship providers and saying we'd like to be involved in this, or is it something? Is it how do I frame this question? Is it put in place by the apprenticeships companies? Do they go out and look for certain categories to reach out to companies and say, listen, would you be interested in providing a facilities apprenticeship? How does that work?
I think they do once they've got the connections in place with them.
Right.
So like now I've gone through and completed the apprenticeships. Every now and then someone from the college I was with will get in contact, go in. Like, obviously, you had great success yourself. Is there any appetite for bringing any others through at the minute?
Yeah. Is that something you've done?
It's not yet.
No?
It's not yet. I think it hopefully will be in the future.
Right.
But not something we've done.
Right, okay.
Done just yet.
Yeah. So, obviously, you did that for 4 years, am I right in saying? So, how did you find that 4 years in its totality? Were there times when you were like, oh God, because obviously I guess it could be quite daunting at certain times. Or did you find that the right kind of support was there from an apprenticeship perspective in terms of the colleges and the mentors and the?
So the colleges were fantastic. To be honest, the bits where it became difficult was, so I went through the level 3 when it was still in its early iterations, and then I went through the level 4 when it was still in its early processes. So kind of got towards the end of the program, and you have to do an endpoint assessment when you finish.
Yeah.
So it will be made up of probably 2 or 3 elements, whether it be an exam, a presentation, a professional discussion, and sort of so on.
Yeah.
Only problem was when I got to the endpoint for both my level 3 and my level 4 all those years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't really know what they wanted.
Right, okay.
So we was kind of getting, and the college were getting, conflicting information in terms of where we was going to go with it.
Right.
And I think as they're obviously developing how they want the programs to work, it's only natural. So I was speaking to someone the other day who's just been through it recently, and they said it's so much more streamlined now than when, like, the experiences I was talking about. I was like, it's not how it runs now, which is positive. But in a way, it was quite good because it was really character building.
Yeah.
Because you're going through the assignments were difficult, but muddled down, got through them.
Yeah.
And then you get to the end bit and it's like, I have no idea what I'm preparing for here, because you've done like 8 different assignments that
of course.
They can pick a topic on.
Yeah.
We've all picked this route because we don't really like sort of the exams and formal route of the normal qualifications take.
And now you're doing that anyway.
And now we're doing it anyway.
Yeah,
so it was a difficult sort of thing to get around, but we got there in the end, and I think they've definitely made that process a lot simpler now moving forward, which is positive for all apprentices coming through.
Okay. And you mentioned sort of mentors earlier within the business once you've been to college and learned certain elements and how they supported you. How did you find that support? Did you have to go out and actively request it, or was that support there?
I was really lucky because the minute I started, Mark Rudd, who's now my line manager, was instantly assigned as like, no, he's going to be your mentor. Any questions? Right. Mark's your go-to.
Yeah.
But then also any work that Mark was doing, he'd bring me in on, even if I couldn't really do a lot with it.
Yeah.
And it was just sitting in the meeting, understanding what was going on and building that knowledge base. So he was really good with that. And if I'd come out of a meeting and go, I have no idea what an FCU is, for example, he'd go, okay, no worries. Just jot down the abbreviations you don't get, because it's an industry full of abbreviations.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
And we'll just go and take 5 minutes after the meeting and I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah.
And once you go through that process, it's like, well, suddenly changing a fan on it makes so much more sense than it did when I'm standing there going, FCU, right, what can that mean then? And if you don't ask the question of it, then you'll find yourself spending the next 10 minutes of a meeting going, I still don't know what that meant,
Yeah. And that's the funny thing, because a lot of people would be scared to ask.
Yeah.
because we kind of naturally don't want to make ourselves look silly, or we have the perception that if we do ask, we're going to look silly, when that's not necessarily the case. You're there to learn.
Yeah, no, 100%. Been really lucky in that regard, in that even if I have asked a question that most people would look at and go, what's he on about here?
Yeah.
It's always been met with no, there's no such thing as a silly question. Lad, you're learning. Yeah. This is what it is. Don't worry about it. Any more, feel free to ask.
Okay. Brilliant. It actually sounds like the apprenticeship was a really good, positive experience for you in terms of your career. Obviously, after you completed that, you started as a facility assistant for Nomura full time. How did you find that transition from apprentice to facilities assistant? Was there any challenges or things associated with it?
The transition from apprentice to assistant really wasn't too bad, because I kind of just kept doing the majority of what I was doing anyway, with a couple of different added responsibilities. So it wasn't really too much of a drastic change. The step up from assistant to facilities manager has been quite eye-opening.
Really?
Yeah, it's one of those that I think I'd been looking at it. So like for 6 years, my pure goal was, I want that.
Yeah.
I want that job. I want that title.
Yeah.
I know I can do it. And now I'm doing it. And I've gone from sitting in a room, and if I make a suggestion, well, it's all right. We might do it, we might not.
Yeah.
Now if I make a suggestion, we're doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so the responsibilities
are different.
It's been good.
Yeah.
But it's been different, and it's definitely a learning curve. One I'm still going through.
Yeah.
The imposter syndrome's going off like mad.
Oh, we all get that.
It's so natural.
Yeah, without
so
doubt.
Natural.
Without doubt. So I guess you've kind of gone from an individual who doesn't necessarily make decisions, an ideas man, that passes ideas off to other people, to now having the ideas passed to you, and then you're the one making the decisions about whether or not to implement them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting change. It's things like, so where I now lead one of our service contracts from the client side perspective. We're looking at a couple of different things, and the contractor will come in and go, well, we can do this, or this. And in the first couple of months, I've almost instinctively gone to look to my right to the colleague who would have made the decisions previously. And I'm like, he can't help now, he's retired. I better work out what's going to work best for the business.
Yeah.
But again, even now, if I'm in a position where I go, I've not come across this before, I'll still go back to my colleagues that have been doing the job for a lot more than me.
Yeah.
And ask for some feedback, or go, this is what I think I'm going to do. What do you think? And I'll go, generally they'll go, yes, that's a good decision, George. Or they'll go, have you thought about it like this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's weird, even though I'm not an apprentice anymore, I still feel like I'm kind of going through that process of just building up slowly until
that's not bad though.
I don't need that safety blanket there soon, hopefully. Well, give it another couple of months and we'll be.
I mean, we have people that that have been on the show that have been facilities managers for 30 plus years, and they still go to their network about certain things that they're not sure about. So I think our industry on the whole is an industry where there's so much to know because of the different services and service partners, and the hard services, the soft services, the technical, the non-technical. We've all got one brain. And unless we're all Einsteins, you can't remember everything, So it's good to lean on that network, I think. So obviously you've got a great internal network, which is fine. Do you have an external network that you also liaise with?
Yes. So I've kind of developed that through working with WMH Risings.
Right.
So I did a webinar for them for Apprenticeship Week, must have been 2-3 years ago. And then after that, I actually joined the committee and started helping with the events they were putting on.
Okay.
So through going to those events, you then start building your network up again, of whether it be the committee members or the regular people you start seeing coming to the events, or the speakers that you've had on. And, it's one of those of you're in the pub after an event or after a committee meeting, and people are maybe bouncing a couple of ideas off about certain things that they're working on. And even if it's not ones that you're necessarily working on, and just chipping in, then means that the minute that you do have to come to something like that, you go, oh, I know that so-and-so's already worked through that. When he spoke about it, I thought this would be a good idea. Would that work here now?
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not. But then I can reach out to that person and go, well, I know you had this experience.
Yeah.
What was the outcome? I'm about to go through it too. So definitely leans on that.
Right, okay. So where do you see your career in, is facilities management your career now moving forward? Because you're still a young man, 27.
Yeah, facilities is where I want to be.
Yeah.
In terms of...
Any goals or aspirations?
Do you know what? It's so weird because for the best part of 5 years of apprenticeships, the only goal I had was to be a facilities manager.
Yeah.
I'm now a facilities manager, and it's like, you know what? It's time to actually...
realign, reassess. Yeah.
Realign, but put the work in, and the grounding I put in with the knowledge and actually experiences I'm going to go through over the next year or two is probably going to be what helps me end up wherever I'm going to be down the road.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in fate, to be honest. Whatever will be,
I agree.
Will be.
Yeah.
So I might as well focus on putting the work in now and getting myself to a positive position than worrying too much about what's coming down the road.
Yeah. Okay, so how have you? Obviously, I think the industry's changed quite a bit recently, especially in the last 5 years. So I imagine you've seen quite significant change from the start of your apprenticeship, to where you are now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 6-7 years, which, to be fair, is quite a long time in facilities. So where have you seen the largest, the biggest change for you personally?
I think the biggest one is, and it's probably the one that most people think of at the minute, is we're obviously up to 2020.
Yeah.
Most places it was, no, you're all coming in 5 days a week. You'll all be here. You've all got a designated desk.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really fit with what actually we need to do now, because we've proved that people can work from home.
Yes.
So let's transition to a sort of work plan where people will have a little bit of a hybrid, whether they're completely at home, mixture of in the office and at home.
Yep.
And that obviously then means that you can reduce your space.
Yes.
But it does mean that it's changed how we've had to do things.
Right.
It's definitely changed how, when you look at sort of the different services that you offer within a building, where you would maybe see quite a steady take up or usage throughout the week.
Yeah.
It's now Monday, quiet.
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
busy.
Fairly busy.
Yeah.
Friday, absolutely dead, no one's there.
Yeah.
So managing that balance has been interesting, not just from a perspective of looking at how the business can take it, but also how we deal with it as a team. So we're currently doing a hybrid week of 3 days in the office, 2 days at home.
Right.
Throughout the pandemic, I went from being completely at home to in for a week, at home for a week.
Yeah.
I then, when I took the facilities manager job, then decided I was going to go into the office every day for about 6 to 8 weeks.
Right.
Which is a lot more tiring now. We don't do it all the time.
Yeah.
That was a little bit surprising.
Yeah.
I was getting to the end of the week. So I have no idea how I used to do this every day.
Yeah, I know.
Almost falling asleep on the train home.
Yeah. You need that one day these days, I think, where you can get up a little bit later.
Well, I bumped into one of my friends in a pub the other night, and so I'm sitting there, someone who does 2 days at home, 3 days in. My friend is an architect, so he's kind of in between being at home or doing site visits. And then we saw one of the guys that we went to school with, and he said, well, I'm at home all the time and I hate it.
I wouldn't like that.
And I think if you spoke to someone who was in the office all the time, now seeing the balance that everyone else has got, they'd probably hate it too.
Yeah.
So I think that sort of balance of maybe 2-3 days a week in is definitely the way to go. I mean, for someone who's obviously managing buildings, don't really have a choice. We've got to be there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But if you're working in something like, I don't know, IT, where maybe you don't necessarily need to be in the building where all of it's taking place.
You can dial in remotely and deal with everything,
I think having a hybrid option is probably what would be beneficial now, especially if you surveyed a lot of people coming into London, and I mean the train companies must be seeing it because they're bringing in like flexi tickets and stuff like that.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
So the minute they start doing that, start saying, maybe that's the way that we're looking.
I think it's the way the world's moving. And
sure.
you've also got Gen X. Is it Gen X or Gen Y or Gen Z? Gen Z. I get confused. There's so many.
I do as well.
Yeah, but Gen Z is, the way that Gen Z likes to work in terms of the spaces they like to be involved in and things like that. There's lots of things to take into consideration. Have you come up with any interesting ways to reuse the space that you no longer use?
So for us, we've condensed down and let some space out.
Yeah.
And then we've redesigned some of our floor space in terms of how it's used. So like sit-stand desks coming in.
Okay.
Sort of putting into meeting rooms that rather than it just being a generic meeting room, there's a TV on the screen that you can plug your laptop into. And, you can really embrace the hybrid working by going, right, well, rather than us having a meeting and us all sitting on a screen, even though we're all sitting in the same room.
Yeah.
Going, well, I know Mark's at home today.
Yeah.
But the rest of us are all in. So we'll all go and jump in a meeting room.
And we'll dial him in.
We'll put him up on the screen.
Yeah.
And we've actually got that ethos going again of what meetings are all about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that collaboration.
Yeah.
Which is really important. Okay, that's really interesting. So ESG is a big thing, obviously, within facilities management at the minute. Obviously, it's changed a lot of how the industry as a whole does things. I think we do it quite well, if I'm honest. I say that a lot on the show, but I do think that we do it well as opposed to other industries. How do you see that impacting FM over the next couple of years?
I think it's not just how it's going to impact FM, but it's how it impacts the actual client businesses that we will ultimately work for. Yeah. Every business is trying to strive to improve their ESG targets and really show what they're doing. I know it used to be CSR and corporate social responsibility and all that sort of stuff as well. But I think
it's kind of all been rolled in now, hasn't it?
It has.
The S takes on the CSR, really. I think, isn't it?
Yeah. So from an environmental and then maybe moral perspective, you want to be doing the right things. And I mean, for a lot of businesses now, especially like the bigger corporate businesses, it's more the impact of if you get caught not following it.
Agreed.
So much going forward.
I don't think that's a bad thing, though.
No, not at all.
I think business on the whole needs to be held to account.
100%.
And we should be doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Not because sometimes you can take the easy way out, can't you? You know, you can hide behind something and say, oh, well, I don't want anybody to find out it was me. But unfortunately, things like this come out in the wash, whether it's 20 years later or not. If anything, that makes it worse.
Yeah.
The fact that it takes something
taking so long,
to resolve. So I think it's great in that sense, and I think it's a bit of a stick, isn't it? I think it's a bit of a stick to keep us on the straight and narrow.
Yeah,
for sure, and make sure that we're doing the right things. And us as a business, in terms of our business, we realigned our strategy. To make sure that we did the right things for the right reasons. Yeah. So they became part of the culture and so on and so forth. And I think a lot of businesses are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is really important.
It's like seeing the London living wage and stuff like that now is obviously, you go back a few years and the uptake on it wasn't anywhere near what it is now. And
brilliant now.
Positive.
Oh, we love it. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
Absolute no-brainer. I can't believe it's taken so long for people to go, yeah, of course we need to do that.
Yeah.
I can't understand the delay on it.
I know. Well, I mean, I get it to a certain extent because it's, I think initially when it came out, it was a big jump. It was a big jump from what the actual national minimum wage was. I mean, what was it, 6-7 years ago it came out, I think, something like that. Yeah. Now, it's not that big a jump. I mean, the national minimum wage is $11.44. London living wage is £13.15. It's not as big as it used to be. And there's lots of advantages of making sure that you pay the living wage, whether it's recruitment, retention, doing the right thing, once again, for the right reasons, I think is crucial. All right, well, listen, tell us a little bit about yourself, George. What do you like doing outside of work?
So outside of work, it's I like to try and keep myself fit and healthy. Yeah. So I've done a couple of marathons and...
Really?
Yeah.
Oh God, so do I. As you can tell, I'm an athletic specimen.
Mental,
Really, marathons? What, like London Marathon?
Yes, I've done London and I've done Brighton.
Really?
Started running in lockdown.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing next to anything. I went, I've got to do something to fill my lunch break. And it just kind of skyrocketed. And then one day my head went, I wonder if you could do a marathon. I went, go on then. For while I'm young enough to do it and my knees aren't shot to bits, let's give it a go. So I've done a couple of them.
How did you find it, the first one?
The first one was brutal.
Was it?
Yeah. So Brighton Marathon there's a part of it towards the end where you just go out towards, in the middle of an industrial state, towards like a power station.
Really?
And there's no spectators there at all. All you can hear is just feet hitting the floor.
Really?
And it's going on for it's like a mile and a half out, a mile and a half back.
Yeah.
Because they just need to get the numbers up to that magic 26.2.
Yeah.
And mentally, I've never been so close to quitting something in my life. Really? It was horrible.
So that's where the wall is on that one then?
Yeah. 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 But that's the great thing about doing something like that, because everyone's in it together. Yeah. Everyone's all feeling equally horrible.
The same thing, yeah.
And you just get talking to people around you and it's like, right, come on.
Yeah.
We're going to do this. We're going to get through it.
Right.
And it gets you through.
What was your time for your first one?
Oh, the first one was dreadful. I think it was like 5 hours. What's the first one? 5:15?
Really?
5:30, something like that.
How long ago was that?
So that would have been 2021.
Yeah. If it makes you feel any better, George, I'd probably still be doing it now. To be fair, I'll be in a pub in Brighton. I never got away.
That's the other thing as well. Like, I've made all these plans with my pals after we'll go and we'll have a couple of drinks.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in Wetherspoons falling asleep.
Oh, God. Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, just the amount of calories that you would have burnt doing that.
Yeah, I've gone, right, I want a mixed grill and a pint, and the next thing I know, I'm nearly asleep in me eggs. I'm like, this isn't the one.
Okay, and you're buying a house, I understand?
Yeah, so trying to buy a flat.
Yeah.
It's obviously a little bit of a challenge at the minute, given the current state of the market. But
we've had a few people on the show that are residential FMs. We could maybe put you in touch with a few people that may welcome a phone call from you, George.
I'll be appreciated. Any help will do at the minute, because it's I've been looking since sort of early October, and it's difficult out there.
You've got to find the right one, though.
Exactly. You don't want to rush into it.
No, not at all. Especially if you're going to live there for an extended period of time.
Yeah, for sure.
It's got to be right. Okay, well, that was it. George, how did you find it?
It was good.
You were really nervous before you came in, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was. It's one of those that I've been worried about started thinking about it last week.
Did you?
Yeah, and then I'd started thinking about some of the questions you were going to ask and drawing up some answers. And then last night I listened to the last episode you did with Horizon.
Right.
And it nicked all my answers.
Really?
Yeah. So,
no.
Like the...
Who was that?
It was the one with Josh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, Josh, yeah.
So I think it was the CV one. I've gone, talk about CVs. I say, put on about square footage. First thing he says.
Square footage.
I'm sitting at home. Oh, no.
Yeah.
But no, it was really good.
To be fair, though, I mean, your story is different because you came via an apprenticeship. So, we like to keep the show quite interesting. So because you had a different pathway, what you could talk about was something that probably nobody else can.
Yeah.
Which means that you will help a lot of people that listen to the show. Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us.
That's all right. Thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Another great show, guys. I'd really like to thank George for coming on and talking us through his apprenticeship, and also giving advice on how to get into an apprenticeship within facilities management. If anybody wants to reach out to him, I know that he's very active on LinkedIn and via IWFM, and I'm sure you wouldn't mind giving advice, George. Is that right?
No, not at all. Not at all. Wouldn't mind.
Okay. Well, listen, thanks Risings listeners. We will see you next time. Bye.